Welcome to Business Unveiled Podcast. This is the place where we help overwhelmed, time-starved entrepreneurs like you make the profitable shifts to get more done and get more out of life. I'm your host, Angela Proffitt, award-winning 8-figure entrepreneur and CEO. And in every episode of Business Unveiled, I'm bringing you conversations that will give you the expertise and strategies that will scale your team and business so you can get shit done. That's GSD in our world. So get your time back and grow a business that helps you be present in your life. Let's do this, y'all. This episode is brought to you by the GSD Academy. This step-by-step business productivity online program will share with you exactly how to shift your mindset, set boundaries, build rock-solid processes, customize your message in order to strategically grow your revenues and get shit done. Visit angelaproffitt.com/GSD Academy. It's Angela. I'm back for another episode of Business Unveiled. And I'm super excited to talk with our guest today because I know how important it is to have analytics and data in your company. If you don't have any type of analytics or data set up, it probably should be the first thing you do before you go to bed tonight. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but I've learned the hard way that really making sure that you're asking the right questions and you have the right data points set up can really make or break your business from a profitability standpoint. And so today we're going to talk with Michael Loban. He's the co-author of the Amazon best-selling book. Ready for the subject? Crawl, Walk, Run. Advancing Analytics Maturity with Google Marketing Platform. And if you don't know what Google Marketing Platform or Google Analytics or Google Business Manager or Google Ads Manager, like there's so many things Google that I realize that not everyone knows a lot about. And so I'm super excited to talk with him today. Michael, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yay! So before we jump off and start talking about the good stuff,
Yes.
tell us, how did you get into this? Like as a kid, were you always fascinated by numbers and data, or was it something that you like worked into? So like take us back and let us know your journey and how you got into where you're at today.
Absolutely. So as a kid, I really was not much into analytics or statistics or math. And what got me into this, and especially the evolution of my role over the past couple of years, was more around understanding what businesses and organizations that we work with need and how do we provide this to them. And about 10 years ago, working at InfoTrust, we started to notice that organizations are doing really a great job in many ways coming up with ideas, marketing messages, promotions, doing some very interesting stuff on social media. But then the question would come up, so how did that work for us? And you would often get a blank stare. And we thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity to do things a little bit better, a little bit differently using data. And on one hand, over the past 10 years, it seems like we've come a long way. But on the other hand, it feels like we are still in that space of not quite knowing what to do with all the data that we have access to. And to give you an idea, we just passed through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and every retailer has big sales. Every retailer runs a lot of advertising campaigns. And we met with all of our partners, which are usually very large enterprises, run different advertising campaigns. And we met with a couple of them asking at the end of the day, so how effective were those campaigns? And each one would tell us, well, we generated X number of revenue, we sold X number of products. And my next question to them, well, but what would happen to these customers over the next 6 to 9 months? Do you think you just overpaid for short-term sales? Maybe the ones that were not even profitable for your business because you ended up giving out products 50% off, 60% off? Was it really a good investment? Yes, you generated some buzz. Yes, you generated a spike in sales. But what happens in the next 6 to 9 months? Did you just borrow sales that would naturally happen to your business and you overpaid for them? And not many organizations had a very concrete answer. Right, so that's what I'm often referring to when we say that, look, yes, there's more data, yes, they're getting better at collecting the information, but I think we are still at early stages, or some organizations are still at early stages of taking the data and determining, are we making better, more informed, more profitable decisions using that data.
And so many people, like you said, don't understand it. And so even one of our clients, they do large revenue, and they literally want to fly by the seat of their pants, which I don't do. I learned the
Good.
hard way. Don't do that. And so we've tried to, I call it potty train your brain. We've tried to potty train them. We've tried to do templates. We've tried to do all these things. And the owner of the company, who pops on these calls sometimes, he's like, well, I just want to do this. And I just want to do that. And I don't like that image. And finally, like, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm like, this relationship is not going to work, because you have all these data sets and all these points. We're pulling things from HubSpot. We're running ads on Facebook. We're running ads on LinkedIn. We're using Instagram. You're paying X amount of dollars to large firms, ad agencies, to
Mm-hmm.
drive 100,000 plus users to your site weekly. And your site, the site wasn't set up correctly. We were hired to like help them market online programs. And then when I got into the back of it, I'm like, I can't market anything. Your site's not set up appropriately. You don't have keywords. It's not optimized. It's not set up. Oh, by the way, your analytics is owned by someone else. Like, it was just a mess. And so, we ripped it apart over the past few months and tried to put it back together. But I'm like, well, we need to look at the analytics and the data from all of the different systems that you're using. And we need to gather the data, run some reports, do some split testing before we dump 10 grand into a funnel. And he's like, what analytics? What are you talking about? What do you mean? And I'm like, do I need to screen share? I mean, you get these reports. But the bottom line is, most entrepreneurs, or we own multiple companies, and we're so busy that we don't stop to pay attention. And that's like the worst thing you can do. Like, I was one of those people too one time, and I ended up wasting a bunch of money. So when people come to you, I get, my question is like, how do you break it down so that people, like, he thought I was being, he's like, quit talking, like, are you saying words that I don't understand? I'm like, I'm not trying to anger you. I'm just telling you what you think and what you want to throw money at, and what results are going to come out of this in 30 days when you don't get the sales you want or the conversions. And exactly what you said, they don't think long term. I'm thinking of a nurturing or branding and the nurturing, and then start small. Let's not start with a 3,000 product online for lead gen. So what's your approach? And again, I'm never trying to anger anybody or like make them mad or talk over their head. But I find myself at times thinking, like, I don't even know how to tell you this, but I'm not going to take your money and do what you're asking me to do, because I already know it's not going to work. So what would your approach be to people like that, other than fire
So,
them?
well, I love what you've mentioned, and truth be told, everyone these days has to be very careful about where their time goes. And so, number of conversations where I see, look, there's just the person does not seem to be open to entertaining another approach or leveraging data to its capabilities. I've asked myself, is it really a fight worth pursuing? Because I know there are plenty of other organizations that understand already the value of data and that do not need to be spending hours and hours explaining why they need a dashboard that works and tells them exactly what to do and what not to do. But if there is a chance, right, and the person that I'm speaking to is open to alternatives, I think the easiest way to persuade somebody is not for me to use my opinion or say, well, I wrote a book about it. That's not really how I do It's more, let's build a couple of quantitative models and see which one can deliver us more results. So let's say we have a website and we can bring people to the website via social media traffic, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever that is. And we can bring traffic to our website via running, let's say, advertising campaigns on AdWords. And then based on my knowledge of the industry and cost per click across different campaigns, I will build a mathematical model where I can present to the client and say, look, based on my hypothesis is that based on what we are seeing, if you invest X amount of dollars in your social media, we're going to generate this much revenue for your business. If you're going to invest X amount of revenue in your AdWords, we're going to generate this much revenue. It's never one or the other. So our hypothesis is that we should split your budget in the following ways. And we want to give ourselves 30 days to see if our hypothesis is accurate. And if not, then we can reiterate. And when we're able to present to organization this type of quantitative model and explain based on what information I'm making, building my hypothesis, it becomes much easier, right? Because yes, we can argue opinions. That doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the question is, how can we test my hypothesis, your hypothesis, and how can we figure out which one will actually generate us more revenue, more profitability? That's how I tend to approach it.
Totally. That's a much more calm approach than me. I'm just like, you're not going to listen. It's yeah. So it's crazy. So for major companies and even small companies that have been in business for a really long time, why should they consistently like look at their digital assets and then like when would you recommend like undergoing like a digital transformation? Like, is that once a year or once a quarter? Like for people that don't do this on a regular basis,
Sure.
like what does that mean and why should you do it as a business owner?
Well, let's step back and ask ourselves what is really digital transformation, right? If we talk about the digital transformation, usually, and we talk about this in the book quite a bit, we come to the idea of digital transformation usually because something has not been done for a while, right? We forgot to act on something for extended period of time, and now we have to come in and we have to transform, right? And that's why often you see enterprises hiring a digital transformation officer or head of a digital transformation. It means, okay, clearly see that there is an opportunity, possibly we are a little bit behind it, right? Because you don't hire a transformation officer if you are ahead of the curve or if you are very much in line of what is going on in the industry. You don't need to transform, you're kind of already doing it. So that was my first question is how do we know that we are actually falling behind? And then my next question is, let's not try to compare ourselves to what other organizations are doing, but ask ourselves a question, what is our audience? What are our customers interested in? What do they need? What problems are they trying to solve? And then determine how we can use digital technologies to bring this to them. I think the challenge is just let's go through the digital transformation process or route is why we end up with so many organizations kind of saying we need to now go and sell directly online to our customers. Well, as a customer, do you need yet another thousand of e-commerce websites that are selling what you can already buy on Amazon, on Walmart.com, right, on Target.com? Probably not. So the question is, well, maybe digital transformation has to mean something different for us because our customers want something else. So to me, the ability for organization to transform digitally is all about how can we use digital technologies and certainly analytics to better understand what our customers is interested in and how we can deliver it to them in the best possible way. So I am, once that is done or once the organization is on track to doing that, I'm a much bigger fan of digital evolution, right? How do we slowly progress and how do we continuously innovate in the digital space? Now, to answer your question more directly, how does the organization know that it's time for them to transform, or do we need to redo the website or not? It's a question that often comes up, right? Somebody has a website for 2 or 3 years, and now should we rebrand? Should we make changes to it? Well, if you've not made changes to your website over 2 or 3 years, that's the problem within itself, right? Why aren't we continuously improving our website? We have plenty of data about what pages people are visiting, what content people are looking at, what information people might be requesting from us through contact us forms, right? If I'm in business of professional services, right? What questions are people asking on a podcast? Can I create more relevant content about this information and have it on my website and then promote it? Right? And then through these types of iterations, yes, you might every once in a while say we need more substantial changes to our website, but you will be much more in line with what your audience is interested in. You're not really going to fall behind. And if you look at websites like Walmart or Amazon and many other websites that are considered best in class, you rarely go to the website looking at it and asking yourself, what happened? It feels like a brand new website, like the one I've never been to. No, but they always, every single day, right, they make small tweaks, they make small changes based on what data is telling them, and they're always building hypotheses. Can I make this page show more products? Can I make this page show less products? Do I need the product carousel? Maybe I need to remove it. Maybe I need to show product carousel only to people that come to my website from advertising campaign, right? So through those intricacies, or through those small changes, is how we can actually make our website incrementally better.
We have tried really hard to like keep ours up to date as we go. And then about every 3 years, it's like, okay, we're going to go through and do a rehaul, but we definitely monthly look at the analytics
Yeah.
by page. And that's how we choose like what goes on our home, like your real estate, like your home page. So I feel like we use the data, the right way to like put on the home page where you don't want to bury something on your website if
Right.
people need it and want it, right? So I'm interested to know just myself more about leveraging Google marketing because, I love Google Analytics if the dashboard's set up correctly for what you need.
Sure.
It's free, and I know that some businesses still don't really look at it because they don't know what they're looking at or they don't know how to read it. But even going further than Google Analytics, I know the Google marketing, like the whole platform, has so many options. And I feel like even myself as a business owner, like it can be very overwhelming. But from a Google perspective, can you share more about what Google marketing platform is and what should business owners be paying attention to from the Google marketing platform?
Absolutely. So, and in the book, we talk to a great extent about what Google Marketing Platform includes. But if you're talking to a small to medium sized business owner, the first one is obviously Google Analytics, which allows you to better understand what happens on your website, how it performs. And I think the challenge of why people often do not look at Google Analytics is because it can be overwhelming, right? There are so many different data points, there are so many dashboards, there are so many charts. So the question that you need to ask yourself, what is the group of metrics that is really important to me, right? If your website is all about content and you have a regular blog, then the question is, what can I learn about my blog from analytics? What are people reading? What content people are paying attention to? What articles are they spending the most time on? What articles lead them to fill out a contact us form? So then you can make the decision, hey, I need to be producing more of this content, or I need to be promoting this content online because I know that when people read this content, it leads to them contacting me or reading more content on my website, right? So we really need to focus on that set of metrics that is important to us. And a lot of times organizations tend to obsess about a certain metric. Well, is my bounce rate high or low? Is the time on the website high or low? And to me, the answer is, well, you always want to look at the progress. So do not look at the absolute number, just look at how things are progressing over months, 2 months, 3 months, and that will give you an idea of how actually you are doing. The other solution within Google Marketing Platform that is also incredibly important is Google Optimize, which allows you to do split tests on a website, which allows you to experiment with website design and see what resonates with people before you actually make a permanent change.
Got it.
And certainly Google AdWords or uh, Google Ads, running ad campaigns. I'm a big proponent of running campaigns just to test your hypothesis on a website, right? If, for example, you're interested in launching a new product or a new service and you're writing a lot of new content on a certain topic, allocate some money to AdWords, to very specific long tail keywords, and see if people are clicking on that message and how that translates to engagement on your website.
So I'm not even familiar myself with what is the difference. So Optimize 360 and then Data
Mhm.
Studio, what exactly do those, what's the difference between all
Sure.
of them?
So 360 within Google Marketing Platform means if the product is enterprise or paid solution, or if it's a free one. So Google Analytics is a free product by Google. There
Mm-hmm.
is also Analytics 360, which is an enterprise version of Google Analytics that has an investment associated with it. You have Google Optimize, which is an A/B testing solution, and then you have Google Optimize 360, which is a paid solution that has more features, more enterprise features. And Google Data Studio, it's a dashboard, it's a visualization platform. So it automatically integrates with, for example, Google Analytics and other platforms, and then you can better visualize your data. But I would say companies that should be looking at Google Data Studio are the ones that have already used Google Analytics, have already set up some reports and are accustomed to looking at the data. Otherwise, you might fall into this trap of trying to build a perfect dashboard without building a skill of how to actually interpret the data and figuring out what to make with that.
Got it. So are some of these better for service-based businesses versus a mid retail? And when I say mid retail, I mean like a gym membership, or like, I don't know if you know what Pure Sweat Float is, but it's
Sure.
like this new place, where it's like a membership and
Hmm.
you can go there and you know, you can go and become a member to get blowouts at a certain place
Yes.
versus like a Walmart and an
Hmm.
like they're really large. And so what is best for service-based versus like the membership, smaller retail, and then like the larger retail? Like, does that matter with the different products?
Now from Google Analytics, so service-based business or small retailer can all benefit from Google Analytics. An enterprise such as Walmart, Nordstrom, Macy's, they will probably need Google Analytics 360 for the advanced functionality that that product offers. But if you're, for example, a small gym or a membership website, Google Analytics has e-commerce reporting. So you can actually see all product sales on your website. You can even see profitability by product on your website. You can measure return on advertising spend right within Google Analytics, and you only need free version. You do not need an enterprise version. And Google Data Studio, uh, it doesn't really matter if you're a services business or e-commerce business for you to use it. I would say it more depends on your analytics maturity and how comfortable are you with actually using analytics solution. And again, my first step, if the person who is listening maybe to this podcast has not played with analytics, is not in this daily habit of looking at the data, Google Analytics reporting should be sufficient to get you started. And then you can certainly build and customize a lot more reports and interesting dashboards within tools like Google Data Studio. And Google Optimize, again, the same. It's an A/B testing. It's a testing solution for your website, for your digital property. Doesn't really matter if you're an e-commerce business or if you're a professional services business, you can still use it. But you do need to have certain amount of traffic on your website. Otherwise, the results are just not going to be very meaningful or statistically significant.
Awesome. So you mentioned Google AdWords. What is the biggest mistake that you see businesses that would make an investment in Google AdWords? What's the biggest thing that you see that is just a mistake? Like, don't waste your money and don't use AdWords unless you set it up right and look at your data. I know that. But
Right.
do you find that people are kind of wasting money and throwing money away? Like, or if someone wanted to run Google or use Google AdWords, what are like the top 3 mistakes you see that they should make sure that they're not making those mistakes?
Well, for me, wherever I'm looking at analytics behind a certain campaign, or wherever somebody is asking me, how can you help us evaluate the success of this campaign? My first question is, well, what are we trying to learn from here? Right? Because a lot of times companies are trigger happy to run an advertising campaign, but what determines the success of this campaign? Even if it did not result in 100 sales, but you learned something and now you understand, hey, this message does not resonate. I need to go with a different type of messaging. That's an important thing that now you understand, and maybe it was worth paying for. And so to me, wherever you're about to spend money on advertising campaign, obviously the first one is, what do you want to measure as a result of this campaign? And the second one is, what do you want to learn from this campaign? And I would say the last mistake is you know, when people are playing with that and do not allocate budget that they can actually afford to lose. And what I mean by that is, if you have not used, let's say, Facebook advertising or Google advertising or yeah, the platform, and you want to experiment, give yourself a budget and say, look, I can afford to spend $1,000 or $2,000, $3,000 to learn this and to see kind of what happens. And then play with this amount, obviously, or hire somebody who can do that for you and see what you can learn. A lot of times company will say, I just burned through $5,000. That was my advertising budget for 6 months. Well, then probably this was not the right channel for you to leverage, right? Maybe you should have went the other route, or maybe you should look at the cheaper ways to get your message out. Maybe look at more organic type of way to drive your traffic to the website.
Awesome. Well, what it all comes down to, at least in my experience, what I see is the business owners or entrepreneurs, they don't really understand that there has to be a strategy.
Yes.
And like you said, you have to ask these questions where people will come to us and say, can you I want to be number 1 on Google. Can you, do this and do this and do this. I just want a lot of hits to my website, or I just want to be number 1 from Google. But then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's set it up so we track it and what's converting. And some of the things that I have found is that before we even will take on a client and help them with some of these stuff, is you have to, don't spend the money and run AdWords to a shitty site that's
Yes.
confusing your prospect client or customer, or whatever you want to call it. So do you have like a checklist for people that before they start to even think, and Facebook ads are the exact same way. They're
Sure.
like, "Can you just run me an ad? I want to make some money in my sleep." And I'm like, I don't know who you've been listening to, but the shit don't work like that. And you have no data and you have no landing page and your homepage has 13 call to actions. Like, they don't understand the behind the scenes of it. So
Right.
it's like, do you have a checklist like in your head of like, okay, you need to make sure that you've done this, and you've done this before you start to run ads?
Right. It's a great question. I'm so happy that that's how you
It's
approach
loaded.
this with your clients. Um, Look, I'm not a pay-per-click expert, right? I
Mhm.
do not run advertising campaigns, so I look at it from the data analytics standpoint. And as such, when somebody wants to run a campaign, I want to look at give me your template for data, right? I'm almost, how would you want to report on this? And what are your hypotheses in terms of what this campaign will generate? So I want to see the math that went into planning this. How many clicks are you expect to buy? How many visitors do you plan to get on your website as a result of that? And what will be, let's say, your conversion rate? And then I want to see how those assumptions were made. And then if we run the campaign, did we meet those assumptions, or did we exceed them, or did we fail miserably and we ended up not meeting of what we were hoping to accomplish, but what can we learn as a result of this, right? So for me, I always want to look at how did we arrive at this decision and how are we going to validate this decision? Because otherwise, to your point, it becomes very much a debate of opinions. Well, I want to promote this, or I want to use this banner, or I want to use this banner. And my answer is like, all of you are absolutely right. All of these banners are amazing. So let's determine how we can test which one is going to work. And then the one that's going to work is the one that we're going to double down on.
It's just so true. So for all of you listening, which we'll put this in the show notes, like InfoTrust is your company. And so it says better, it's very clear, very clear. Better data, better decisions. How did you arrive at that header for your website? Did you use data?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. We definitely tested different ones, but at the end of the day, we always, when we meet with our partners and we meet with our clients, and actually, this is an interesting time of year because we have annual reviews, planning for next year. When we do annual plans with our partners, we always aiming to learn from them. So, data doesn't just mean to the website, data means also ask people that you work with, right? So we often ask them, why did you decide to work with us in the first place? What should we be learning from the industry, in your opinion, right? What are the other partners that you work with that we can learn from? And when we ask our partners about ultimately, so what exactly are you buying when you're working this InfoTrust? Because there are many organizations that can set up your Google Analytics, right? It's not really a proprietary knowledge that we have. Yes, there are certain things that we do arguably much better than others, technically speaking, but at the end of the day, Google Analytics is Google Analytics. And it often comes down to, well, you help us make better decision easier. And because if you are running advertising, or if you work for a very large marketing company and your budgets are millions of dollars a month, you do not want to be the person standing in a boardroom trying to explain how you managed to lose $1 million. So why, for the budget that you were given, right, you underperformed. So our goal is to use analytics to give people the clarity of what is the best channel, where they should be investing, and how to get the best ROI.
It's fascinating. It's so fascinating. So for companies that need to be aware, and let's just assume that people listening do not know what some of these acronyms are
Mhm.
about non-compliance fines, which is funny. It's actually been like a theme for today. And for GDPR and
Yes,
CCPA, like, can you explain those and how can companies make sure that they are in compliance?
sure. So the short answer, there's a lot of content that we have on our website that people can check out, and certainly in the book. GDPR, especially CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, I would say in many ways are the results of some organizations mistreating customer data and using the data that they collect about their customers in a way that customer did not know about, nor wanted to, right? Nor gave the authorization to. It really comes down to asking for permission to collect information, then treating the information the right way, not sharing it with parties where your customer does not give you permission. And when customer is inquiring about the data, that you should provide this data to them as far as what you know about them. And there is also privacy. There are number of different regulations, and more regulations are coming. One thing that we know, especially this year, is that more regulations are going to take place, helping customers protect their privacy online. If you're a small to medium organization, and check out some of the resources. Uh, it's not for a small medium-sized company, it's not expensive to become compliant, but you absolutely have to be mindful of this. Until recently, small businesses would say, well, they are probably not the ones that are going to be targeted. And you generally do see that if there's new regulations, regulators tend to go after large enterprises, to make an example, right? But at some point, everyone will have to comply, right? And you do not want to use the language, well, but they're doing it worse than I am.
Right.
So get the basics right. And at the end of the day, it's not just about regulations and being compliant, it's about doing the right thing for your customer, right? It's showing them respect and helping them and explaining to them, look, we are doing the right thing here with your data, and customers will certainly appreciate
Yeah, it's crazy to me because, from I do so much technology consulting and mainly with Apple products. And people don't realize when you get a new iPhone and you turn it on and you put your Apple ID in, what you're allowing and opening yourself up to, and most people don't care until it starts to affect them. And I will never forget, I was teaching an OTT class um, on advertising
that.
maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and no one knew what it was. No one. Like in the audience, I'm like, how many of you, and I'm like, how many of you have Hulu or Roku or streaming devices? And, most of everyone, I mean, there are hundreds of people in the crowd, and they were shocked when I said, okay, pull up this. We did a test. It was so funny. I'm like, pull up this form and you want something from me and I'm going to give it to you from your phone. So put this code in and, there's a little checkbox that you have to check before I'm going to send it to you. And, you put your first name, last name, lead capture thing. But this was just to make a point where all of these platforms do this and no one,
Right?
maybe someone like you, goes and reads the terms and conditions of what you're allowing. And then they get mad when they're like, well, Facebook didn't tell me that they
Yeah,
were going to, every page I like, every TV show I like, every product I like, every ad I click on, because they're not marketers, they don't understand the back end of it. And so when people ask me, I'm like, "Oh my god, I love that. I love the shit because it helps us target and use the data to better help our clients and spend their money in a smart way and not a stupid way." But companies they're really, I don't want to say slimy, but like slick and like just sliding it in there. But is there any type of regulations where the larger companies like Google or TikTok or Facebook are able to like break it down into English, in a little pop up that says, hey, if you check this box, like we're gonna sell your shit, like whatever you're doing on your phone. But I don't think the average consumer walks around because they're not marketers. They don't think that way. And then even like as a consumer, I have Alexa, I have all the stuff. I love all the tech stuff and I'm talking about a car and then, ads start popping up on my phone. Well, I'm considering getting it anyway. So I'm glad that the ads are being tailored to me. I would rather see a
absolutely.
Porsche and a Tesla than a Ford. I'm not going to fucking buy a Ford. I might buy a Tesla. I might buy another Porsche. I don't know. But I'd rather it be tailored to me
Right.
as an advertiser because why not? Like, I don't understand like what the big deal is. So, but is there any protection from the consumer from these larger companies like taking their data and doing something with it, and then the consumer acting like, well, I didn't know they were going to do that. Like it's in their current terms and conditions, right?
Absolutely correct. And that's the question, right? not who is to blame per se, but when we all benefit from, hey, Facebook is free, right? YouTube is free, and many other websites, Instagram is free. And you have to ask yourself, well, what does really free mean? There's some kind of way how these organizations are able to hire thousands of people. Yahoo, right, is free. Well, obviously there are some paid services, but Yahoo, let's say .com, it's free. So the question is, well, how do they make money? Well, arguably one of the big channels of revenue is advertising, and it's not good or bad, right? Good advertising can help us as customers make good decisions, or really help us at the right time, remind me maybe this is the right type of product for me. So it's not right or wrong, but it does come down to the question, I think, especially for the organization in the longer term, which one can do it better and can do it the right way. And right now, if you go to the website, there's a privacy policy, there's a cookie policy, at the bottom of the footer, so you can learn that information. But I've done an experiment and I wrote a blog post about it. I went to websites of about 10 major retailers, and as part of CCPA, I can request for them to send me information that they have about me. And the form didn't even work the right way. When I filled out the form, some said, we're going to contact you at some point. Like, the customer service behind it was just poor. And when I started to get emails, one would tell me, you are not based in California, we don't have to send you anything. One
Oh my
would send me some partial information, right? One didn't even give me a comprehensive information. They just sent me all my data in email with a very poor formatting. And yeah, I did not want to take screenshot and publish all of that online, because that's not really the role that I play. I do not want to shame those organizations, but I think there is a learning opportunity here, that right now we are looking at this as what is absolutely the minimum thing that we need to do to be compliant. And that's probably not the right question long term. The right question long term is, what should we do for our customers to put their mind at ease, and use our privacy policy, use how we treat their data and how we treat their information as almost competitive advantage. Because at some point, right, until recently, customers, to your point, didn't really care, right? I go to the website, they ask me to give me an email, I give them my email. But at some point, customers will start asking, well, what am I really getting out of this? Is it really worth the exchange?
Yeah, I find a lot of and even larger companies that it's like at checkout, they're like, "Do you want us to email the receipt or print the receipt?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd rather you just email it because I don't like paper."
Right.
And, so they have to have your email address, and that's all they use it for, is they send me a receipt. And
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes I get put into some type of a campaign or sales, but typically they have to ask, would you like to receive emails for this? Would you like to receive emails for that? I still think that people, or not people, but just organizations don't really take the time to map out the customer journey and how can they best leverage the customer journey and the data. And it's not something that you sit down and find out overnight. I mean, it's fascinating to me. So, last question, which you may not have any thoughts on this, but I have had a lot of fun on TikTok since quarantine. I thought it was a kid's
Yes.
dancing app until I had to bribe my nieces to, like, do their schoolwork and shut up so I could work, and then I'm like, "Okay, 3 hours equals 3 TikToks." I'm not even being funny. And then I started to look m I started to look more into the back end of the business model that they have and what they're doing with some of their, like, the Sway House and the Hype House, and,
Mm-hmm.
like, the business models behind these, which is freaking brilliant. And then my mother, so I got my mom's like, "Well, I wanna see the cute videos of the kids." And so I get her an account, and she doesn't post on it, she just needs an account to, follow all the
Absolutely.
kids and the grandkids. And then she sees a Dateline episode where and she's like, "Oh my gosh, did you know that the Chinese are taking our data?" And I was like, "Mom, I guarantee you that there's more shit on Facebook about you and your advertising than the Chinese will care about. And I don't think that we're in any type of situation or we're doing any illegal US deals with foreign companies that you need to be worried about for Chinese gathering your phone data. Like, what? And so, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, so TikTok just came out with the ad platform.
Right.
Like, me and a team member went through and like got TikTok certified, and it's still new and we're learning from it. But what are your thoughts on it?
I really don't have many, and the reason I say that I can't comment on their policy. I've observed the TikTok. I certainly read all the news, and I see how some organizations are beginning to use it. I'm not using TikTok myself, so I do not want to, give the information that might not be accurate, and the opinions that I might have about the platform. But I just don't have enough data, and as you can imagine, as my background, I like to comment on things when I have data and information. So probably not
Totally.
the right question for me.
Well, it's just so when this just happened, I
Yeah.
just got done listening to a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying, a
Yes.
master negotiator of media manipulation.
Hmm.
Which from working with clients in the public eye, like I've just seen so many lies and skewed and whatever. You can't believe everything you hear or read or see or whatever. And so just coming off that book and then listening to her, I'm like, you do know that the media manipulates things. So until it's like affecting me or hurting my company, right now it's helping my company.
That's right.
I mean, that's all that I know. And then I was either listening to a podcast or reading a book. I can't remember. Do you know the Target story where this 16-year-old little girl got something in the mail from
Yes,
Target,
of course.
right? Was
Yes.
that a book? I can't remember.
It was a case study, if
Okay,
you will,
okay.
when parents got
Yeah.
a promotion for their daughter about something that had to do with pregnancy, and
Yep.
they lashed out, and then they realized that she actually was pregnant.
Right.
Yep,
I'm just like, Target is brilliant, but it's like that's how they found out that their teenager was pregnant. And I'm just like, but then yeah, they lashed out at Target, but I'm still wondering, I go back because I worked in healthcare. I'm like, so did the OBGYN office, I'm always thinking like, how did we use different email addresses for different things very strategically? And sometimes I'm like, how in the hell did this email get delivered to this email address? Because I only use this specifically for this. So then I know someone's selling something. And I didn't give permission for that. So
that's
I
right.
find it very interesting. I mean, most people probably wouldn't do that, but I'm a little psycho about our email deliverability and then being productive with
Of
like what
course.
emails are going where. And it's, some people whenever I was listening to that, they're like, "Oh my God, this is so scary." And I'm like, "No, this is real life." And the truth is she was pregnant. She just hadn't gotten around to telling her parents, I guess. But like you should just be a truthful person. And then if you're a truthful person and you're not doing things you shouldn't be doing online, then how can you get in trouble, right? I mean, that's all I got to say about that.
So it's a great debate. Yes.
Right? Right? It's fun. It's fun to see like how people look. Is the glass half empty or half full? And anyway, so if people want to connect with you, where is the best place for them to go and connect with you?
Sure. The easiest is probably our company website, infotrust.com. On Amazon, you can also find our book by searching Crow Walk Run or going to infotrust.com/book. And on LinkedIn, my profile is fairly easy to find, Michael Loban.
Awesome. And we'll put all those links in the show notes. This was
Thank you.
super fascinating. Thank you so much for all of your insight and for
My
being here
pleasure.
today.
Thank you for having
Awesome.
me.
And everybody that's listening, make sure you have analytics hooked up. That's the first thing. And if you don't know how to read the data or set up a dashboard, like Michael said, there's a ton of resources on their website. We'll link it in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening and have a great week. I'll catch you next Tuesday on another episode of Business Unveiled. Bye. That's it for this week's episode of Business Unveiled. Now that you have all the tools that you need to conquer the world and GSD, get shit done, would you share this with your friends and fellow business leaders? One thing that would really, really help us and help new listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a comment in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in and listen to Business Unveiled. You can check out the show notes at angelaproffitt.com/podcast and link up with us on social media so you can share your biggest insights. And I want to know your aha moments. Until next week, remember, the profitable shifts and structures you're creating in your business help you be more present in your life. So get out there and GSD.